Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
I'm Count Jackula.
He's Count Jackula, and today we are going to talk about Holland, a psychological mystery thriller from director Mimi Cave, who also directed the movie Fresh from a few years back, the cannibal romantic comedy horror movie. This movie is not as good as that movie, unfortunately.
No.
This movie is about a teacher in small town Michigan in the early 2000s named Nancy, who lives a stereotypical nuclear family life with her husband, an optometrist named Fred, and she begins to suspect that her husband, that he is leading a double life and cheating on her. So she sets out with the help of her friend Dave, I believe his name is?
Yeah, I believe his name is Dave.
And they try to catch the husband in the act. The movie then spirals into crazy territory from there. We can't exactly tell you what they find because that's the spoiler section.
But I think we can tell you we hated it.
Yes, I started off very intrigued with this rather unique thing it had going on at the beginning. What if a character found themselves in like a mystery movie scenario, but it appears that the mystery was entirely in their head?
Yeah.
Like they were seeing things and clues that had obvious alternative explanations.
Yeah.
And they were just being paranoid.
Yeah.
Like, what if someone was going down, like, their own version of a QAnon rabbit hole?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then about halfway through, it became clear that, okay, there's a little bit more going on than that. The movie got a little less interesting during that period of time. There's a bit of a lull. And then in the third act, it got interesting again.
Yeah.
And it started to pick up, and I'm like, okay, all right. This is a little bit more traditional than what the movie started off as, but I'm willing to roll with this. And then at the very end of the movie, it completely ruins itself.
Yeah.
With this twist in the last 5 minutes that completely destroys the rest of the movie. It's supposed to be somewhat ambiguous, but the most obvious explanations completely destroy the movie.
Yeah. They're plot destroying.
Yeah, from reading the interviews with the cast and crew, my interpretation of the ending is the one that they seem to have intended, which is the worst possible interpretation of the ending in my opinion, but it is the one I took away from the movie.
The movie didn't know how to pull that twist off. They probably should have just frickin' avoided it.
It could literally be cut out and the movie would be fine.
Yeah, the movie would be fine. It wouldn't be the greatest movie ever, but it would have been
It would still have
satisfying.
problems. It would still be a movie that ends a little less satisfying than the intriguing way it started, but it would at least be a movie that doesn't piss me off.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of psychological thrillers in like the late 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Finding out that the movie was actually written back then and sat on a shelf for a long time, and that's why it's set in the early 2000s.
That makes a lot of sense.
It explains a lot because it definitely feels like a twist from that era.
The movies I call the dark age of American horror movies.
There's a lot of bad ones. There are some good movies from that era that have similar twists, but they were the more few and far between.
Yeah. We got a twist at the end.
Yeah. Your high bar really was the M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Yes.
And then you had all the M. Night Shyamalan imitators. There are movies in which the twist is very similar to this one, or at least it reminded me of the twist in this movie, but I can't tell you those movies without just spoiling the twist.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to wait for the spoiler section to talk about it.
So if you're like, oh my God, late 90s thrillers, what bullshit. You're going to hate this movie. You're going to hate this movie.
That being said, Nicole Kidman does do a good performance in this movie. It's one of those best performance in worst movie scenarios.
Yeah.
Because she completely embodies this character of this very kind of dumb and naive woman who kind of gets caught up in her own sauce.
Yeah, she gets caught up in her own like fantasy version of what was happening.
Her own fantasy world, and you're questioning throughout most of the time how much of it is fantasy and how much of it is not. And she does a good job of playing the role. It's just the ultimate route the movie's plot actually went was very unsatisfying.
Very bad.
I was so mad at the end of the movie, and I was just like, wow, way to take the movie from like a 3.5 stars to just a 0 stars in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. It's especially bad because this is a movie that's building up to its twist.
Yeah.
So that thing at the end, it has to work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Outside of the twist, some of the other things that I had a problem with this movie, I kind of wanted the movie to go crazier. if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
The movie kind of has this kind of like pseudo David Lynchian vibe to it, that like suburban neighborhood with like the dark underbelly underneath.
Yeah, but it's not as imaginative as a David Lynch movie.
And it has these random sequences where she has like these like freaky dream sequences. And I kind of wanted the movie to like play more with that like unreality versus reality thing.
Yeah.
Maybe the ending would have worked better had it done that. So Holland is an Amazon Prime original movie, so that means it's available on Amazon Prime. If you're curious by anything we've said so far, you can check it out on there, but we don't necessarily recommend the movie.
No.
And with that said, let us move on to the spoiler section.
All right, which spoilers should we do first?
All right, so the first spoiler of the movie is it turns out she is completely wrong about the fact that her husband is cheating on her, which you kind of suspect throughout the movie because she keeps interpreting things that clearly have other explanations. Okay, he has all these pictures of all these like houses and things like that. And I'm like, well, he builds models, so it would make sense for him to take pictures of houses that he likes and try to recreate them for his town.
Yeah, for his little train set town.
Same thing with like him going to hardware stores and things like that.
Yeah.
And like having like, you know, buying wood and shit. Like, it's like, okay, that makes sense.
But then she starts to find things like, jewelry or dresses, but it turns out they're all for her.
Yeah, and one of which she buys specifically because she thinks that something's missing. And as the movie proves, the thing was never missing.
Yeah.
Like,
she drives herself crazy thinking someone stole something, and it turns out it was never stolen in the first place.
It's a movie where you're not watching someone being gaslit the whole time. You're watching them just come to complete crazy conclusions.
Them be delusional.
Exactly. But it turns out she's not entirely wrong because her husband, he may not be cheating on her, but he is secretly a serial killer.
Yeah.
The houses that he's been taking pictures of are the houses of the victims he's been killing, and the people he's been filling in his little model town that he's been building are the victims that he has killed along the way.
Yeah. These are his trophies. Instead of actually taking something physically from the scene, which could get him in trouble, he recreates the scene in his train set in a way no one can see.
So it goes from being this kind of like interesting watching someone go down their own paranoid rabbit hole to, oh, well, it turns out at the end of this paranoid rabbit hole, there actually is an even worse conspiracy than she was even thinking. So, okay, I guess that somewhat justifies her weird jumping to conclusions earlier. All right, that's a little less interesting than where I thought the movie was going, but fair enough. Okay, let's see where this goes. And so what ends up happening is her friend Dave, who she has an affair with over the course of this movie, it's very clear that she is convinced that her husband's cheating on her, so she starts cheating on him with Dave, who is an ethnic guy. He is a Hispanic man who lives in this
very light-skinned Hispanic man
who lives in this small town, and he's got like a criminal past. So like she finds him interesting. He's more intriguing than her milquetoast husband.
Yeah.
He starts having problems with her for that very reason. Like, I'm just
I'm just a plaything for you.
Yeah, I'm just a plaything for you. I'm no different than your husband's models.
Yeah.
Eventually, he ends up, because he does end up falling for her, helping her
discover her husband is a serial killer
by following her husband to one of the victims' houses. Now, at the time, he thinks it's going to be an affair he's going to catch.
Yeah.
But instead, he catches him killing this woman.
Yeah.
And has a confrontation with the husband that leads to the husband being stabbed and thrown into this lake.
Yeah.
So they kind of suspect the husband's dead. But then, twist of twists, the husband's not dead because he shows up again. Dave ends up getting injured, possibly killed. She has her confrontation with the husband that leads to her killing her husband. Okay.
So far, so good.
For a more traditional thriller kind of ending, rock on, fine. But then the movie, in the last 5 minutes, does this surreal thing. It starts having a voiceover with Dave talking about living in the small town.
Yeah.
The way she did at the beginning of the movie. And then it starts melding their voices together as they're saying the same thing about living in this fantasy of this town, but what is real and what is not. Wow, we're seeing models of her and Dave and her and her family, and Dave is slowly disappearing from the models.
Yeah.
This is left rather open to interpretation, but based on how I interpreted it,
and how I interpreted it,
and how the director seems to have interpreted it based on the interviews I was reading, the idea is ultimately supposed to be Dave never existed. He was a complete fantasy in her head.
Now, this doesn't work.
This doesn't make any goddamn sense because now, if Dave doesn't exist, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened with the husband that also didn't happen.
Yeah. For example, if Dave doesn't exist, then who fucking stabbed the husband and threw him in the lake?
Yeah, that led to
Was that her?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if Dave didn't exist, then how come she's almost caught several times by the phone ringing and it's Dave?
And what about that scene in the optometrist's office?
Where Dave goes in by himself. She's not there to do something to set up the crime that they commit earlier by breaking in.
Yeah, so that she could break in so that the window's open, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, did the husband actually kill anybody? Like, what?
Yeah. And so you're like, well, way to go, movie. You just wasted my time.
And so the movie ends on this ambiguous note of either it is a movie about a woman who defeats her oppressor, or it's a movie about someone who goes so far into their own delusion, she kills her own husband.
For no reason.
And I'm now sitting here going like, which one is it supposed to be? Because those are very different movies.
Yeah. Yeah, those are very different movies with very different stories.
And if you want to make that the same movie, you need to really have a deft touch, and I don't think this movie found the right approach.
No, because I will tell you the movie that did this correctly. It was called The Machinist.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah, The Machinist is the one. It has an unreliable narrator. There is a mystery as to what's going on, and his mind is, in fact, fracturing the entire time.
A great movie that I was thinking of when we got to the end of the movie was Fight Club.
Yes.
You know, Fight Club famously
that's another one. Yeah.
has the ending that Tyler Durden didn't exist and it was just him the whole time. But if you go back through the movie, it actually makes sense. It tracks.
Yeah.
And you can see people not reacting to Tyler or just looking at him and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hell, the movie even flashes back to those moments to be like, okay, did you get it? Did you get it?
This movie doesn't have that.
No. What's the fucking answer?
The figment of her imagination literally has PTSD flashbacks.
Yes.
In the movie.
Yes. He is so real, he has PTSD flashbacks.
You know, he has that dream, which is one of the more surreal Lynchian moments in the movie, where he dreams of all the Pomeranians, like eating him alive.
Yeah.
Because there was a bunch of Pomeranians in the house of the victim that he walked into.
So how does the figment of her imagination have PTSD and why? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no fucking sense.
It's just a bad movie, guys. I don't know what to tell you. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Well, you can find me here on YouTube every weekday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. How about you?
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on various social media platforms, but these days, I primarily use Blue Sky, so follow me on there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. With that said, my fellow gorehounds, be sure to comment below. I want you to comment below using the hashtag model home. Use the hashtag model home. That way I know. That way Jack knows. That way the whole world knows that you are living the perfect suburban life, but there's something dark and secret underneath it all.
And that you know why we hate this movie so much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.